alien arena, armed with a broken weapon and no way out. The crowd came to watch a human fall, but within minutes, she turned survival into strategy and fear into fire. What they didn't know? She wasn't just a scientist, she was trained to outlast wars. 3 deadly trials, 1 hidden truth, and a fight that shook an empire. This is the story of how one woman turned a death sentence into a legacy. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. Lenara sat quietly on the cold metal floor of her holding cell, her legs crossed and her back straight against the dull gray wall. The room smelled like rust and stale air, a scent she had grown used to during her weeks in captivity. There were no windows, only a flickering blue light above her that cast long, tired shadows across the floor. In her hands, she held a thin strip of fabric, weaving it slowly through her dark hair. Her fingers moved with calm precision, even though she knew that in less than an hour she would be fighting for her life in an alien arena she had never seen. The guards outside her cell barely spoke. When they did, it was in short, clipped sentences in their native tongue. Zarnak, a language made of clicks, hisses, and warbled growls. Lenara couldn't understand the words, but she could guess the meaning. They were talking about her, laughing, placing bets. The humans always died quickly, especially the ones who didn't look like fighters, and Lenara looked like a scholar, not a warrior. That was fine by her. Let them believe it. Let them feel safe and sure, right up until they didn't. Her weapon lay nearby on the ground, a half-broken energy blade with exposed wiring and a low battery warning already blinking red. It was hardly more than a metal stick, not even sharp. It buzzed weakly when she tested it earlier, barely strong enough to light a fire, let alone kill a beast. She hadn't touched it since. There was no need to. Her mind was her real weapon, and right now, she was busy remembering, not the memories of her last assignment as a field biologist, but the ones from before. Missions in deep jungle terrain, ambush drills in the frozen north, nights spent sleeping under 2 suns with a blaster under her head. 8 years in survival. Forces had taught her more than books ever could. The door to her cell hissed open. One of the Zarnak guards stepped inside, taller than Lenara and armored in smooth, dark plates. His 4 eyes blinked out of rhythm as he studied her. In one hand, he held a datapad. The other gripped a long electric baton. "You are aware," the guard said slowly, his voice filtered through a translator, "that you are scheduled to enter the circle of fate in 20 minutes? Lenara didn't look up. "Yes." "Then why do you waste time weaving your hair?" She tied the last strand into a braid and stood, stretching her arms slowly as if she had just woken from a nap. "Because I think better when it's out of my face," she replied, "and I don't like distractions in a fight." The guard hesitated, processing her words. "You are not a soldier. Our records say xenobiologist." "I was both," she said simply. "But it looks like someone only translated half of my file." The guard's upper eyes blinked again. "That would be unfortunate." Lenara stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "For you, maybe." The moment stretched. Then the guard stepped back, clearly uncomfortable, and turned toward the hallway. "Follow now." She walked behind him without a word, her hands loose by her sides, her eyes scanning every corner. Every detail mattered. How far the arena was from her cell, how the guards carried their weapons, where the vents and cameras were placed. She took it all in as they moved through narrow, dim corridors. When they reached the gate, the noise hit her like a wave. Thousands of voices, alien cheers, whistles, roars. The air trembled with excitement. This wasn't justice. It was a show. And she was the main act. A massive screen above the arena displayed her name, misspelled in glowing letters, along with odds for her survival. 1 in 1,000. She snorted softly. Not great, but she'd worked with worse odds before. The arena itself was massive, more like a pit than a field. Rough terrain stretched before her, broken up by strange pools and jagged rocks. A maze designed not just to kill, but to confuse. Her eyes narrowed. It wasn't random. The layout was designed to funnel movement, to lead the unaware into traps. Behind her, the guard's voice crackled through the translator one last time. 3 stages. Survive them, and you leave. Fail, and you die. No other rules. Good, she said, stepping forward into the light. I like simple games. The gate slammed shut behind her. The roar of the crowd rose again. On the far side of the arena, a set of metal doors creaked open with a slow, grinding sound. Lenara didn't flinch. She kept her eyes forward, calculating. She had no map, no allies, and a broken weapon. But she had her instincts, her training, and her will to live. She didn't come here to fight. She came to survive. And that was something she was very, very good at. The first few seconds in the arena were quiet. Eerily quiet. Lenara stood still, her eyes scanning the massive circular battleground. It stretched far in every direction, walled by smooth black stone too tall and slick to climb. Jagged rocks, metal debris, and strange bubbling pools dotted the space, as if some cruel hand had scattered them to confuse and trap anyone unlucky enough to be there. The lights above glowed in soft orange, casting long shadows that danced across the ground. Somewhere beyond the walls, thousands of spectators watched her every move, but Lenara blocked them out. She had only one focus now: survival. A voice boomed overhead, cheerful and mocking. Welcome, honored viewers. Today's entertainment comes from the outer colony of Earth, a curious creature, sentenced by the Tsarnok Council for illegal data access, but worry not. Her trial will be fair. 3 challenges, 1 human, many surprises. The crowd cheered, their alien sounds blending into one long, vibrating wall of noise. Lenara took a deep breath. Her broken weapon buzzed weakly in her hand, barely enough to scratch metal. But she didn't rely on tools. She relied on her mind. She moved slowly, staying low and near the edge, testing the ground with each step. One wrong move, and she might land in a hidden trap or worse. The arena wasn't just about combat. It was a puzzle, and whoever built it had no intention of making things easy. A loud screech echoed across the arena. A gate on the far side slammed open. From the shadows emerged the first challenge, a creature taller than 2 men, with thick, scales like stone and a jaw full of needle-like teeth. It moved slowly at first, sniffing the air with its broad snout. Lenara could feel the ground shift slightly with each heavy step. The announcer spoke again, his voice filled with fake excitement. Our champion today is the Vorax beast, trained for destruction, fed on prisoners and eager for more. The crowd roared. Lenara didn't flinch. She didn't charge. Instead, she moved sideways, placing a tall metal beam between her and the beast. It followed her, curious more than aggressive. For a moment it hesitated near one of the bubbling pools. Lenara remembered her training. Never attack first unless you know the enemy. She studied its movement, watching how its weight shifted, how it blinked slowly, how it paused near the noise of the crowd. Then she acted. She tossed a chunk of broken metal toward a pile of crates on the left. The noise distracted the beast and it turned toward the sound. Lenara dashed in the opposite direction, keeping low. She wasn't running away. She was positioning. Her goal wasn't to fight the beast head-on. That was suicide. She needed the arena to do the work. Near one of the pools, she spotted a crack in the ground. Thin steam rose from it. She crouched and touched the edge, warm, almost burning. She glanced back at the beast. It was sniffing the crate pile now, confused. Lenara shouted once, drawing its attention again. She ran, zigzagging toward the crack, then stopped right at the edge. The beast saw her and charged. Lenara waited. Just as it lunged, she stepped aside. Its massive weight hit the soft ground. The moment it landed, the crack widened. The thin ground beneath the beast gave way with a loud snap, and the creature fell into a deep, steaming pit. A sudden flash of light, a cloud of smoke, then silence. The crowd gasped, followed by scattered cheers and clicking sounds of approval. Lenara stood near the edge, breathing hard but still steady. The announcer chuckled. Well, that was unexpected. Our human seems to have teeth after all. Back in the control room above the arena, a technician named Thinix leaned toward his screen. "Did you see that?" he whispered to a colleague. "She used the terrain, not luck strategy." "She's not just a scientist," the other said. "She's something else." In the private viewing deck, a young alien noble named Zira tapped her clawed fingers against her chair. Her eyes, large and silver, studied Lenara with growing interest. "I want her file," she told her assistant. "Everything. Find out what the council's hiding." Meanwhile, Lenara backed away from the pit. Her hand trembled slightly, but not from fear, from memory. That creature reminded her of a mission long ago, where a teammate had been taken by something similar. She shook off the thought. No room for the past now. The second challenge would come soon, and she doubted it would be easier. Above, the announcer continued. "Challenge 1, complete. But can our human outwit what's next?" Stay tuned, viewers, the Circle of Fate is just getting started. Lenara walked toward a pile of broken armor pieces, scanning them for anything useful. A thin strip of flexible metal caught her eye, maybe a makeshift blade or a sling. She smiled slightly, tucking it into her belt. The arena lights dimmed briefly, then pulsed bright again. Far across the pit, another door began to open, slower this time. Whatever was coming next, Lenara was ready, not because she had better tools, but because she was still thinking, still alive. The door creaked open again, slower than before, and this time there was no roar of excitement from the crowd. There was silence, heavy, expectant, almost nervous. Lenara stood in the middle of the arena, her breathing steady, every muscle alert. She gripped the piece of sharpened scrap she'd fashioned earlier from broken armor. It wasn't much, but she'd learned to make the most out of nothing. The shadows inside the next gate were deep, and whatever waited there, it wasn't coming out in a rush. That worried her more than the beast she'd faced earlier. Out of the darkness stepped not one, but 3 figures. All were armed, all humanoid, but not human. 2 carried long-range weapons, and the third had twin blades that pulsed with a soft blue glow. Their armor was sleek and unfamiliar, designed not just for protection, but for show. These weren't wild creatures. They were trained fighters, arena gladiators. The crowd began to cheer again, their hesitation broken. Now the real fight would begin high above the arena, behind a darkened screen. Tennel watched the scene unfold. He was a mid-level security officer for the Zarnok Council, and he had been assigned to monitor this human's trial. At first he hadn't thought much of it, another outsider caught poking around where they shouldn't. But after watching the first round, something had shifted in his mind. She hadn't just survived by luck, she had used tactics, discipline, a kind of thinking he hadn't seen in many competitors before. Tennel leaned closer to his terminal and pulled up her file. As expected, it was heavily redacted, but some of the older data entries hadn't been locked down completely. He tapped into a hidden archive and began reading. What he found made his skin crawl. Lenara hadn't been caught stealing data. She had been sent as part of an approved research mission. Her report on illegal weapons testing had been ignored. Instead, she had been accused of false reporting and given to the arena for public resolution. Tennel sat back, eyes wide. This wasn't a fair trial. It was a cover-up. Back in the arena, Lenara ducked behind a large rock outcrop as the first shot rang out. Dust exploded into the air, and the crowd cheered louder. The twin-blade fighter was approaching fast, blades humming. Lenara didn't run. Instead, she kicked a small stone into the air, drawing fire from the gunman. She rolled to the side and used the noise and confusion to her advantage. With a burst of speed, she tackled the blade wielder, using their momentum to slam the figure into the side of a jagged metal beam. One weapon fell from their hand, and Lenara grabbed it without hesitation. Now armed with one of their own, she took cover again. Her brain was running at full speed, tracking movement, counting seconds, remembering every detail. She could feel fatigue creeping in, but she pushed it down. The gunman moved with caution now, realizing she was more than they expected. One tried to flank her, but she had already circled back. In moments he was down, knocked unconscious with a sharp strike to the back of the head. The last fighter hesitated. Lenara didn't. She charged, forcing close combat where her smaller size gave her an advantage. They exchanged a flurry of blows, metal clashing against metal, until Lenara disarmed them with a sudden twist and pinned them beneath a fallen support beam. The crowd erupted, this time not just with excitement, but with something else, admiration. She had won again. And not by chance. In the shadows of the private viewing room, Zira stared at the display with narrowed eyes. The human woman moved like someone who had seen real battles. Zira had her assistant dig deeper into Lenara's case. It confirmed what she suspected. The trial was political. The council had silenced someone who had seen something dangerous. But now that person was becoming a problem. One that was not so easy to erase. Zira made a quiet decision. If Lenara survived the final challenge, she would intervene. Elsewhere, in the lower levels of the arena facility, someone moved through the restricted archives. The figure was cloaked, silent, familiar with the corridors. Druin, Lenara's old friend and former squad partner, had been living in disguise since her arrest. He had joined the Confederation under a false name, waiting for a chance to help. Now that time had come. He had planted a signal beacon inside the arena days ago. If Lenara gave the right sign, he would activate it and break the council's lockdown. As Lenara stood alone in the arena, sweat running down her back, she noticed a flicker in the overhead lights. It was a signal, Druin's signal. A tiny pulse. She had used years ago on missions when radio silence was required. She blinked once in response and nodded subtly toward the nearest camera. She didn't know what Druin had planned, but she knew he was watching. That was enough. The announcer's voice echoed again, louder and more dramatic than before. Our human competitor has done the impossible once more. But the final test remains. Will she survive the last round? Or will the circle of fate finally claim her? Lenara turned toward the final gate. Her body was bruised. Her weapon was damaged, and she was running low on strength, but her mind was clear. She was not done yet. The final gate creaked open with a sound like metal groaning in pain. A heavy mist spilled out onto the arena floor, glowing faintly blue under the overhead lights. Lenara stood still, breathing slowly, her body aching from the last 2 trials. She held the captured weapon tightly, though its charge light flickered low. She didn't know what was coming, but she felt it in her bones. This would be the hardest part. Not just physically, but something deeper. Something meant to break her from the inside. From the mist stepped a figure, tall and familiar. For a heartbeat, Lenara's breath caught in her throat. The face was one she hadn't seen in years. Commander Jaren, her former squad leader, the one who had taught her how to survive behind enemy lines, how to build traps from nothing, how to fight without fear. But Jaren was dead. She had watched him fall during a failed rescue mission on Arios Prime, and yet here he was, standing across from her with the same expression he always wore before a fight. Calm, focused, ready. Except it wasn't him. Her heart slowed as her brain caught up. This wasn't Jaren. It was something made to look like him. A machine, likely shaped from memory, designed to confuse and disorient. The Zarnok were known for their psychological warfare. This final test wasn't just strength. It was trust, fear, and the power of memory. The fake Jaren stepped forward and spoke with his voice. You've come far, Lenara, but you don't belong here. Surrender. She didn't answer. Instead, she crouched and picked up a chunk of metal from the arena floor. The air was tense, the crowd above silent, waiting. The figure moved again, now faster, and she dodged just in time. They traded blows, her weapon clashing with its energy sword. It was fast, stronger than she expected. Each strike forced her back. But she didn't panic. Lenara had fought smarter enemies before. She used the space, led it toward one of the bubbling pools she had studied earlier. As they fought, flashes of her past appeared in the creature's face. Her old squad mates. a teacher from the academy, even her brother. Faces meant to stop her, slow her down, make her question what was real. Each time she reminded herself, this was the enemy, not a memory. She couldn't let the past weaken her now. Above, in the control room, Tennell watched in silence. He had already shared Lenara's full file with Zira. The cover-up had been exposed. In the private suite, Zira stood before the council members who had arranged the trial, her voice cold and clear. You lied. You silenced a witness. And now the galaxy is watching. None of them responded, but they knew the damage was done. Back below, Lenara ducked a heavy swing and rolled into a nearby crate. She reached into her boot and pulled out the transmitter she'd built from broken parts. She clicked it once, sending a signal. A small green light blinked in response from a camera near the top of the arena wall. Druin had received the call. Moments later, the arena lights flickered, then dimmed. The crowd murmured. Screens scrambled for a moment before returning. When they did, a new image appeared. A recording from Lenara's helmet cam, showing the illegal weapons testing she had discovered months ago. The truth, broadcast for all to see. The crowd fell into silence, the weight of the revelation settling over them. The figure before Lenara paused. Its programming flickered, uncertain now that the system had been compromised. She didn't wait. With all her remaining strength, she launched herself forward, slamming the creature into one of the metal pillars. Sparks flew, and its body twitched, glitching between faces. She grabbed its weapon, stabbed the energy blade deep into its chest, and held on until it stopped moving. When it collapsed, Lenara dropped to her knees, breath ragged. It was over. A long silence followed. Then the announcer, now uncertain, spoke again. Challenge complete. The human has survived all 3 trials. Per arena code, she is granted freedom. The gate behind her opened. No guards, no celebration. Just the path forward. Lenara stood slowly. She looked up into the stands, her eyes meeting the cameras. People weren't cheering. They were watching, thinking, maybe even understanding. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She just walked toward the exit, each step steady, her head held high. Outside the arena, Druin waited near the shuttle he had stolen earlier that day. When Lenara appeared, he grinned and held out a water pouch. She took it without a word, sat beside him, and leaned back against the shuttle's side. For a while, they said nothing. Finally, Druin spoke. You did it. No, she said softly, looking up at the sky. We did. In the days that followed, the arena was shut down. The council members who had ordered Lenara's sentencing were removed. Her story spread across star systems, not as a tale of revenge, but as one of courage, truth, and quiet resistance. Lenara didn't stay in the spotlight. She disappeared soon after her release, slipping away to a quieter place. Some say she returned to science. Others believe she joined a group that helps other innocent prisoners across the galaxy. No one knows for sure. But every now and then, in a distant corner of space, a small carved symbol is found on an old wall or fallen ship, a circle, split down the middle, a sign that someone survived and someone still remembers.